The grand ballroom glittered with golden chandeliers, silk curtains swaying lightly as the orchestra tuned their instruments. It was a night of elegance, wealth, and prestige. The city's elite had gathered, draped in diamond necklaces and tailored suits, sipping champagne as if the world belonged only to them. Among them stood a maid, quiet and humble, her black dress uniform blending into the shadows. She was there to serve, not to shine, but she carried herself with grace that didn't belong to a servant, something deeper, something unshakable. At the heart of the room, the millionaire and his son stood with arrogance. The son, handsome and privileged, had women lined up for a dance, but none seemed to impress. The father, proud and cruel, looked across the room and noticed the maid quietly placing glasses on silver trays. His lips curled into a mocking smile. He called out, not in kindness, but in humiliation. The crowd's attention shifted, eyes falling on the maid as whispers rippled through the air with a sneer. The millionaire proposed a cruel challenge. If the maid could dance the waltz flawlessly, she would be worthy of marrying his son. Laughter erupted among the guests, cruel and merciless. To them it was entertainment, mocking a servant for daring to exist in their world. But the maid's eyes did not falter. Her chest rose slowly, her face calm, almost a calm. She knew something they didn't, something that would soon silence the golden laughter filling the ballroom. The music swelled, and the challenge was set. The stage of humiliation was prepared, but no one in that glittering room knew they had just unleashed the wrong opponent. The maid stepped forward, her polished shoes clicking softly against the marble floor. Her tray was gone, her hands empty, her back straight, yet the weight of the crowd's scorn pressed heavily against her shoulders. To them she was invisible until tonight. Now, she was their target of ridicule. The millionaire smirked, certain she would stumble, certain she would crumble under the mocking stares of hundreds of glittering eyes. The orchestra, sensing the spectacle, struck the first notes of the waltz. The room's golden glow seemed to tighten, trapping the maid in the center of a cruel spotlight. But deep inside her, she was not trembling. She was remembering her mother's hands guiding hers across a kitchen floor, the rhythm of life stitched into her veins through music. Her youth was not spent polishing silver or sweeping marble. It was spent in dance studios, winning trophies the wealthy could never imagine. She had once been a championee queen of the floor, whose name had echoed in competitions before life's hardships forced her into servitude. No one here knew her history. No one knew that beneath the uniform stood a woman whose body carried rhythm as naturally as it carried breath. And as she closed her eyes for one heartbeat, she summoned it all back: the discipline, the elegance, the fire of forgotten victories. When she opened them, her posture had shifted. She was no longer a maid. She was a dancer reborn. And as the orchestra swelled, her first step across the floor would begin to unravel the arrogance of the millionaire's game. The ballroom hushed. The laughter that once rang so loudly now fell, silent as the maid glided into motion. Her steps, smooth and precise, carved through the marble floor like poetry come alive. She spun with elegance that defied her station, her body moving not in hesitation but in command. The waltz was hers, and she claimed it with every movement. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some guests gasped in disbelief. Others leaned forward, eyes wide. The mocking smiles faded, replaced by stunned silence. The orchestra, feeding off her unexpected grace, played with renewed vigor, strings and horns lifting her higher, as though the music itself bowed to her rhythm. The millionaire's son, who had prepared to smirk along with his father, now found his jaw tightening. His eyes could not look away. The maid's presence eclipsed every jeweled guest, every socialite in the room. Her elegance was not rehearsed, it was real, raw, born of passion rather than privilege. Each turn, each rise and fall of her frame, reminded the world that greatness does not wear silk gowns or diamond crowns. It lives in the soul, waiting for its moment to shine. And tonight, her soul was on fire. The guests shifted uncomfortably. The cruel challenge had turned against its master. The millionaire, who had mocked her, now gripped the edge of his chair, disbelief crawling across his face. This was not what he expected. This was not how the night was supposed to go. The dance was only beginning, but already, the balance of power in that glittering room had begun to shift. By the second turn, the room no longer saw a maid. They saw a vision, a force, a storm of elegance unleashed in silken rhythm. Her every movement was a strike against the arrogance that sought to break her. The millionaire's sneer had collapsed into a mask of rage, his mockery dissolving under the weight of undeniable truth. Guests who once chuckled at her expense now whispered her name with awe. The same mouths that laughed now trembled with admiration. They leaned closer, as if afraid to miss a single motion. Her feet painted mastery on the floor. Her arms embraced the music like an old lover. Her eyes burned with fire that money could never buy. The millionaire's son sat frozen. His father's pride crumbled before him. Yet the young man's chest rose with something unfamiliar, respect, perhaps even longing. For the first time, he looked at her not as a servant, but as someone untouchable, radiant, beyond comparison. The dance swelled toward its peak, each step heavier with meaning. The orchestra's thunder met her soul, exploding across the hall with every note. And in that storm of music and movement, the truth became undeniable. The maid had won the challenge before it had even begun, and as the final notes loomed, the entire ballroom knew the real humiliation was no longer hers, but his. The last chord struck, echoing through the chandeliered hall like the toll of justice. She froze in perfect posture, chin high, heart steady. The silence that followed was deafening, as though the world itself held its breath. Then, slowly, like a rising tide, the applause erupted. Not polite claps, not forced approval, but thunderous, uncontrollable admiration. The millionaire's carefully built kingdom of pride collapsed before his eyes. His guests, once loyal to his power, now bowed their respect to the maid. His son, unable to contain himself, rose to his feet, his eyes never leaving her. In that instant, the hierarchy of wealth and bloodlines shattered. The maid had not only danced a waltz, she had rewritten the rules of the room. The millionaire's face twisted with fury, but there was nothing left for him to say. The crowd had chosen their victor, and it was not him. The game he thought he controlled had destroyed him instead. From that night forward, the story spread like wildfire. The tale of the maid who outdanced the millionaire's mockery, the woman who humbled wealth with nothing but her steps. She was no longer just a servant. She was a legend, whispered in the halls of the elite of the sun. Changed forever. Sought her not as a prize of his father's arrogance, but as a woman he could never forget. Respect grew where mockery had been planted, and love blossomed where cruelty had tried to destroy dignity. The millionaire, however, lived with the shadow of that night. His name, once tied to power, was now chained to humiliation. For the world remembered not his wealth, but his downfall. And the maid, she walked forward, unchained, her head high. For justice had been served, not through anger, not through vengeance, but through the elegance of a dance that silenced an empire of arrogance. The waltz was over, but her victory would echo forever.